In this video, I will take you through the process of creating a water remedy for radionic imprinting. We will look at one method for creating the water base that I have personally found most effective, and cover a simple restructuring method using a magnetic stirrer as seen here. Now let's begin. In this section of the video, I'm going to show you everything you will need to begin this process, but first, why do we use water? Well, we use water because it is a highly impressionable substance for information imprinting. Anything can be imprinted or informed with information, but water has an excellent capacity to store the information and retain it. It is for this reason that we need to erase the water before we begin the imprinting process, which is often known as restructuring. If you are curious to find out more, I would suggest looking into the vast amount of research surrounding water memory. To begin this process, you will require a magnetic stirrer and stir bar. They range in price from $20 to $400, but you really do not need to be anything complex. You can even make one out of a computer fan and a couple of magnets. There are a number of videos on YouTube showing how to do that if required. You'll need a flask or a beaker. In this case, I'm using a conical flask with a stopper. If you use a beaker with a high velocity stirrer, the water will tend to spray everywhere, so you will need to cover it. Next, you'll need food grade distilled water or reverse osmosis water. It's quite cheap to buy in bottle form, or you can produce it yourself with a distiller. Though please ensure that your distiller uses a stainless steel boiler rather than aluminium used in cheaper versions. We use distilled water to keep any impurities in the water to a minimum, or after a blank slate for imprinting. If you are unable to use distilled, then use still bottled spring or mineral water as a second option. Failing that, filtered tap water, and last in line, tap water straight from the faucet. We'll be using 70 milliliters of distilled water, or 70% by volume depending on the size of remedy you are making. In our case, 100 milliliters. Next, you will need colloidal silver. Any type will do. This is simply being used as a preservative and some charge retention. You could imprint directly into colloidal silver after restructuring, but the cost can add up depending on the amount of remedies you're producing. If you were to use that method, I would suggest to use a low ppm colloid. Traditionally, ethyl alcohol is used, which is fine to use, though in some countries it is not possible or easily obtainable. However, make sure you only use vodka as a guideline so it is safe for consumption. Do not use isopropyl, methanol, etc., which are extremely toxic if consumed and can even blind you. If you can buy it in a licensed store down the spirit aisle, then you are good to go. Next, we have 5 ml of colloidal gold. This is completely optional, but I like to use it as a fixative for the imprint, and it's excellent conductive properties of gold for this purpose. Now take the 70 milliliters of distilled water and pour into the flask, which you will place on the stirrer. Now you can take your 25 milliliters of colloidal silver and pour that into the flask. Now last, we can take the 5 milliliters of colloidal gold and add that to the flask. Finally, add the magnetic stir bar to the flask. add the stopper and place on the magnetic stirrer. And usually the magnet in the stirrer will capture the magnet in the stir bar. We just adjust it for that purpose. Now I'll begin the stirrer and run for 20 minutes minimum. Sometimes takes some adjusting. This one will take a while to ramp up. This particular stirrer allows me to set a time limit for 20 minutes, so it count down and stop when it's finished. It also allows me to alter the direction of the stir bar every minute. In this case, it is going in one direction. We'll let it run for 20 minutes and come back to it when it's finished for the final part. Okay, now that the magnetic stirrer has finished restructuring the water, we can remove the flask from the stirrer and decant it. And this particular flask does not have a spout, so I will pour it into a beaker with a spout. That makes it easier to decant into the bottle we will be using in a moment. It also has the added benefit of making it easier to retrieve the stir bar. So if that falls into this bottle, it can be very difficult to get out easily. We take that water and we're going to pour it into the bottle that we will be using for a remedy. That's crucial. Take your time with it, don't rush it like I just did, or it will spill everywhere. And we can place the dropper back in the bottle, screw it on tight, and this is a 100 ml cobalt blue bottle, and the colour helps to preserve the remedy. It's now ready for imprinting, so we will move on to the next step. It's best to imprint as soon as possible after restructuring, as the water is highly impressionable in this state and will begin to take on environmental information. Now that you have prepared the water remedy, you can place the bottle on the radionic instrument and begin the imprinting process. I will cover imprinting in another video. I'd run this for at least 20 minutes and set some rates, etc. or tune into the samples on the input. Again, we will go into more detail later on. For the imprinted remedy, it's best to store refrigerated for long-term use. When using your dropper, avoid any introduction of contaminants back into the water. Ideally use within 6 weeks of creating the remedy. For longer term storage, consider using sack lac or sucrose pills wetted with the imprinted water and allowed to dry before storage. Ensure all your glassware is sterilised before use. This will benefit long-term use of the remedy. If for some reason the water becomes cloudy and any organisms take form, dispose of it immediately and take care to follow these steps again exactly. That is all for this video. Thanks for watching.